Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kellen here from Starter Systems, and welcome back to Monster Energy Supercross 2, the official video game, where today we're going to be playing and recapping the 2019 Detroit SX track, a replica slash custom track that I made in-game today that we're going to try out. I'll talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that I could and could not do with this track, unfortunately, so that it may not be like the most perfect replica ever, but hopefully it looks alright, and then we'll break down some of the real-life action that just happened over the weekend. Lots of chaos in this Triple Crown here at Detroit to talk about, and we'll dive in there in a second. But yeah, this track, I was a little bit hindered by a couple things. Obviously, you can't do split sections in this game, which they had IRL this past weekend in the section, not this next section I'm coming up to, but the section after it. Trying to think what else. Just like some of the way the lanes are arranged are maybe a little bit wrong because, or not like wrong, but just like a little bit off just because of how I had to kind of fit the track into the stadium. But I think mostly otherwise that's it. Like you can kind of get the gist of what works and doesn't on this track from the real track. But you know, like I said, try it out for yourselves and let me know how much it sucks or doesn't or whatever. But yeah, Detroit. And Detroit was a crazy race. I did not go to it in real life. I was instead celebrating my wife's 25th birthday, happy birthday Hannah, in Las Vegas this past weekend. And we were with a bunch of friends and all hanging out, stayed at the MGM, and we actually watched the Supercross inside of the MGM hotel room that we were in, which was like a suite, and it was really nice, and ordered some wings and all that and sat down and watched the racing. It was good times. And yeah, the Triple Crown, for whatever reason, man, these things are not disappointing this year. I felt like last year, like, they were good, but, like, kind of predictable at some point. Like, you didn't have these races that came down to the wire. I mean, most of the races in the 450 class so far have been, like, what in the world is happening in the Triple Crown races. 250 West was much more, like, wide open with the Triple Crown stuff, too. Whereas this East class hasn't really been as gnarly, I would say. Like, Faulkner is laying claim to this series, which, by the way, spoiler alert once again, that I'm going to tell you guys what's going on with the race this weekend. So if you haven't watched it yet, please leave now. But yeah, just chaos, chaos, chaos. One more thing I want to actually mention before I jump in. I will tell you guys, like, I'm going to go through and do a tutorial at some point when it comes to skinning gear, skinning bikes and stuff for this game. The problem is, I'm so new to it myself that I feel like I'm gonna not get it 100% right, and I don't want to do that. Like, I want to give you an accurate, like, fully in-depth tutorial about how to actually do it, because while Pay 2021 and, you know, all those guys do a great job in putting tutorials together, they don't really explain everything, and I was very stuck the first time I put it together, so I want to make sure I'm very thorough before I do a explanation of how it works in this game. So don't worry, I'll tell you soon, but you know, I'm sure some of you guys will see the gear that I'm wearing and be like, how did he get that in game? How is the SYS logos on it? What the heck? Yeah, we'll figure it out. Anyway, 450 class, let's start off with that because it was way, way, way more entertaining than the 250 class. That is for damn certain. I'll tell you what, after last week, I was maybe the most skeptical of Tomac I've been maybe ever. Like, in the last couple of years, I really felt like, despite Dungey outriding him in 2017, just like outsmarting him basically, and then despite, you know, Anderson having just a solid season in 2018, that really Tomac was the best guy the last two seasons. And after last weekend, yeah, he had a win to his credit at San Diego. Yes, he won one of the three main events at the Triple Crown at Anaheim. But I was like, this is wrong. Like, there is something more than meets the eye with Tomac right now, where either it's mental or, you know, physically he just doesn't seem to have the same capabilities he used to, or whatever it was. It just wasn't adding up anymore. And it's not just the 12th that he got last week. Like, that wasn't the one thing that I saw that I was like, Tomac's way broken. It just seemed like little things were adding up where it's like he's no longer the fastest on the track most of the time. He can't seem to get the ball rolling nearly ever when he's in traffic. Things like that were starting to concern me. So when he, this week, started off the night by having a rather dominant walk through the field win to go from 11th to 1st, and honestly, like, just kind of demolish everybody. Like, if he had started with Brayton and had that same speed all throughout, he would have won by 15, 16 seconds. So, like, that is a demolishing ride out of Tomac, and he needed just that. Whether or not he won the rest of the night, he needed that ride to happen so badly, because he was in danger of, like, if he came out this week, for example, and was just, like, once again a guy that could win, but if he doesn't get the starts, he's just stuck. If he was just that guy again and ended up finishing like 8th in that first race, like, I would be out on Tomac. If that happened in the first main, I would have been like, he's not winning this championship. And, you know, maybe he still doesn't win this championship. Webb has been so strong that it's tough to bet against him right now. But I still do believe Tomac is kind of the favorite. We'll get into that in a second. Anyway, demolishes the field in the first race, come through the field victory. Second race, I didn't feel was as like amazing. I think some people were like, I don't know, saying that he was just managing and controlling the ride and all this business, but that's never seemed to be the good Tomac. Like, that worries me more than anything when you start saying Tomac is managing, because like, that is usually when we see the worst of Eli Tomac come out, as a management Eli Tomac. So I wasn't really like positive that that's what was happening in the second race. I think maybe he just was like a little bit off his groove from the first one. He still won the race, but it wasn't like because he started up front, he started with Joey, he started with Marvin, started with Cooper, like, all those guys were there, and he got around them, but it wasn't like every corner he was just passing them, and before you knew it, at the end of lap 3, he was in the lead and gone, which, if he starts in that position in the first race, I feel like would happen given his speed. So that's what I'm saying, is that, like, it was a great ride to win the second race, but it was a little bit like, what happened to first race Eli Tomac in that second one? And I feel like that kind of carried over into the last one. Now, obviously, he did not need to win the last race to win the overall, so I get it. I'm 100% on board with what he did and just, like, relaxing and not pushing the envelope. But he was one Dean Wilson takeout away from not winning the whole thing overall. Not to say that he couldn't have passed Dino or Kenny late there, but he ended up 6th. He kind of backed off of Kenny after Dino and Ken came together. But that was like kind of the Tomac we've seen all year in that last race, if you will, where he's been good. He was making passes, but he wasn't like slicing through the field like old Tomac or like main event #1 Tomac. He was just kind of there and you know, progressing, but not getting things done as, say, fast as he could or used to. So I think that was just like a good management ride for him. I would have been really curious to see, had Wilson not fallen and it put Tomac in this situation where he had to make those late passes, what would have happened, because I didn't think that those guys were going to lay over. They were trying to get on the podium. They obviously don't want Eli to win. So, you know, I think that a couple things would have maybe kicked off late there, but when Dino and Kenny came together, that kind of, you know, spelled the end of it, because Tomac literally needed to finish 6th and he just would win the overall. Like, that's how big his points gap was going into the last race. And so Cooper Webb, who came in as the points leader, ends up going 6-2-1. And I'll tell you what, I would say that by far that's the worst Cooper Webb I've seen since Glendale. He was the fastest in the main event at Anaheim 1. He came from 22nd to 5th, rode great, and then obviously won A2 Oakland, and then crashed in San Diego, but was actually one of the faster guys in the mud until that happened, and then won the next 2 rounds after that in Minneapolis and Dallas. And so, like, this was like maybe the most off his game Webb I've seen really maybe all year. Like, I didn't really look at him too hard in Glendale because at the time I didn't really consider him like a title contender. So I usually really pay attention to, you know, the Musquins, the Tomac, the Roxon. I like to see what it is they're doing, what they're feeling, what's going wrong, if there's anything. And I wasn't giving the same kind of look to Webb in Glendale. So he may have actually been a little worse in Detroit than he was at Glendale. That being said, if that is a bad night for Cooper Webb, which I feel it was, to still end up 2nd on the podium and damn near win the thing is kind of huge. Like, he was putting himself in good spots all night long. He got great starts, but the first main, he got a great start and went backwards, and that was kind of, you know, not good. He was looking really kind of off of his game, out of his realm, out of his element, and turned it around in the second main, started riding a little bit better. Obviously, a start really helped, and he just ended up in a pretty good position early and getting away from everybody. But that last main was kind of like the, you know, breath of fresh air almost, like you can breathe a sigh of relief about Webb, kind of, in that he got a start for sure, but Barcia and Baggett, I thought, were the two better riders in that main event. Particularly Baggett. I think Baggett, if he doesn't get sent off the berm before the whoops right here by Barcia, that Baggett wins that race. And Webb still found a way to win the race. So that's what I'm saying, is that, like, even when he maybe wasn't looking or feeling as good, he still has this way of figuring it out right now that is really kind of the key when it comes to winning championships. You know, they always say winning championships is done on your bad days, and that was, like I said, maybe the worst we've seen Webb since, for, you know, this year almost, and he still pulled off a win in the last main, finished second overall, so he only lost technically 3 points to Tomac, but he actually extended his points lead on everybody else. Like that to me is more of like a big thing than Tomac's turnaround. Like, they're both almost on the same level of, like, wow, Webb had a bad night and he still had second, and, you know, Tomac had a terrible week the week before and he bounced back. Like, those are both really big, you know, storylines, turn of events essentially, that it's good to see both of them kind of have their plus sides, I think, right now. I think a lot of people were very worried, myself included, about what the heck is wrong with Eli Tomac, and, you know, everybody says, oh, there's something wrong with the bike, but Eli never said there's anything wrong with the bike. Cowie never said there's anything wrong with the bike. Nobody has said there was a bike issue. At any point, Brian Kranz could go in there and say, yeah, you know what, I went in there and I found a bunch of metal shavings, and, like, you know, the piston was, like, practically seizing. But no, nobody said that. They've basically said something was just amiss with Tomac after his crash last week. So to see him come back this week and look kind of like the dominant Tomac we saw before, I'm 100% okay with it now. I really feel that Tomac is potentially going to start clicking off a couple more wins here soon, similar to the years in the past where he started getting on rolls. And who knows, maybe we just see Tomac start clawing away at this Webb lead and those two guys separate themselves from the pack. That being said, Roxon and Musquin are still second and third in points respectively, and Roxon is only 4 down, so it's not like it's dramatically gone, or maybe actually, I'm sorry, he's 6 down, and Musquin is 12 down, and Tomac is like 14 down, maybe 13 down. So, you know, it's not a foregone conclusion per se that Musquin and Roxon are, like, suddenly out of this, but they did not look good to me in the Triple Crown, and I don't know what it was. Marvin didn't look particularly like feisty, I guess is the right word. Like, he just seemed like all day long he was just kind of putting in the motions, really. And Roxon seemed kind of uncomfortable, if that's how I could put it. Like, at no point during the day did I, like, feel or see like Roxon was riding within himself and doing it at a speed he knows how to go. Like, it just looked like he was that little bit off everywhere. Corner speed was lacking. His whip speed was good, but, you know, he wasn't scrubbing as hard as he usually does. He seemed to lack a little bit of the intensity. And, I mean, I guess for a bad race, in similar fashion to Webb, for Roxon to still get a 4th after a night that wasn't maybe as strong as he had hoped is not bad at all. But if I can point to anything, I just feel like Musquin and Roxon are kind of in the Tomac situation going into next week, where it's like, man, not only do they need to turn it around, but they kind of have to win one of these things eventually. We're coming up on the 9th round of the series already, and neither of them have a win. Yeah, they're in the title hunt, but, like, that just, like, that's kind of unheard of that neither of those guys have won a race yet. Like, at some point it's going to work, I think, or I've been kind of waiting, but will it? I mean, I guess at some point, I guess it does, but it just doesn't seem like it's been in their favor at all this year yet, and I'm kind of shocked that neither of them have been able to finish it yet. I mean, Kenny's been so damn close that it's hard to say anything negative about his attempts, but Marvin went like 2-2, 3-3, 2, and now he ends up 6th in this one. So that was obviously like a jump off the cliff a little bit for him. Like, he didn't have the same kind of week or weekend that he had at Anaheim, and speed was off, and just kind of in general didn't look comfortable. Maybe it's because the whoops didn't break down like he'd expected. In practice, they got really chewed up. In the night show, they seemed to stay, for the most part, pretty well built up to the point where guys were blitzing them all the way until the very end of the main and not jumping. Some guys started jumping, but it was pretty much universally blitzing, and that is obviously not Marvin's kind of usual forte. So if you have a track with whoops like that, I think Marvin typically struggles. But yeah, I would say that the biggest pieces to the puzzle that I'm going to pay attention to next week is not this Webb versus Tomac, two guys going for win after win. It's more of Roxon and Musquin getting back to like consistent ways and potentially race winning speed, because they've been so close, they've been there, they've been putting in the motos, but I don't know, like I was unimpressed, I'll say that, this past weekend by both of them. Obviously more so Musquin for finishing 6th, but yeah, I think that we need to see a little bit more out of both of them, realistically speaking. Final shout out in the 450 class though to Chad Reed. The old man does it again. He gets on the podium, his 132nd career podium in his 245th career race. Do the math. He's finished on the podium more times in his career than he technically has not. So that's pretty incredible stuff for Reedy to get back up there. Looked honestly just good all day. I see people saying he got progressively worse. He went 3.57, but if you watch the second main event, he was all over Marvin and I think Joey and somebody else is in there, and just putting pressure on them all the way to the line. That's incredible. Marvin and Joey, especially Marvin, are these guys that we expect to be race winners week in and week out, and Reed was pretty much catching them late in the race. So it wasn't really so much of a fluke as it was just he put in 3 solid motos when other guys really couldn't all night long. Yeah, the 7th looks a little bit bad in that last race, but I mean, that last race, even in itself, he was giving Tomac the business for 3 laps. They're exchanging, they're going back and forth. He worked for this one, and kudos to him, hats off. Practically 37 years young, and he's just out here so crushing it. So nice job, Reedy. And I did briefly mention the Wilson-Roxon takeout thing, I guess, so I should just clarify that I don't feel that there is anything wrong with what happened there. Dino was trying to square off Marvin. He didn't realize Kenny was as close as he was. Kenny didn't realize Dino was going to square as hard, and they just made contact. I mean, it was unfortunately kind of almost unavoidable in that circumstance, because there's 2 guys thinking 2 different things that came together, and neither one of them is necessarily right or wrong. It's just a racing incident in my opinion. Obviously some Dino fans out there are probably pissed, but it happens. I mean, he still got up, he still finished the race, he's still 5th in the standings, he's still crushing it all year long, Wilson. But yeah, I just figured I should hit on that really fast. And speaking of really fast, wrapping up this video with a real brief discussion about the 250 class right now. Yeah, Faulkner, this is Faulkner's title to lose. I'm sorry. I like Jordan, I like Chase. Those guys are good, but they have had a lot of opportunities in 3 rounds thus far to make something happen, and they have done nothing with it. They've gotten good starts in all the 3 races. They got good starts in all the 3 races this past week even. And, Sexton going off track a couple times. Smith crashed last week while in 2nd. These mistakes are really starting to kind of add up against them, and Faulkner's, for the most part, been rather mistake-free. He's been getting great starts, and he, seems to be well in control once he gets the lead and doesn't toss it away or do anything wildly stupid. And, all those things added together is just a absolute 100% championship winning recipe that I see coming out of Faulkner this year. So, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I know that there's also some drama going on right now with supposedly Jordan Smith using illegal forks. He's using 52 millimeter cone valves, which I guess are not technically available to the public, and it kind of breaks a homologation rule right now. So there's some talk about that. I saw a Vital thread pop up that was, going into the details of it a little bit more, but there's some speculation that Smith might get all of his points revoked for all the rounds he's used the suspension thus far, since it's technically illegal what he's doing. But I don't know what's exactly going to happen with that. But I guess something to keep an eye on, really. Like, you know, these seems like every week there's something new, some new drama, scandal, whatever. There was Limegate, there was the Bowers-Barsha, you know, disqualification thing, and now we have Jordan Smith using 52mm cone valves, and he shouldn't. So who knows what the F is happening, but hopefully it doesn't result in a complete loss of a championship run, because at the very least, Forkner's biggest problem here is that Smith has been at least kind of consistent. So it's not like it's been like 8-7-2 for second in the points. You know, Smith went 2-4-2, and he probably would have went 2-2-2, but crashed there late in Dallas. And, you know, he's only, what, 13 points down in the championship? 3 rounds in, as dominating as Forkner has been, he only has a 13-point lead. It just takes one crash or mechanical or whatever to really flip the tide of the series and change things into, you know, Smith's favor. So I guess that's kind of the negative going for Forkner, is that the rest of the field has been relatively consistent behind him. In fact, you know, Smith and Cooper and those guys all seemingly finding the podium every week. But yeah, I mean, that was Detroit in a nutshell. Triple Crowns, love them. I'm not necessarily aboard the bandwagon that we should have 17 of these Triple Crowns, but I think this is fantastic that we have these mixed into the season to throw a bunch of drama. And hey, speaking of Forkner's dominance, it's about to become under some serious question this week, because we have our first 250 East-West showdown in Atlanta this week. The halfway point of the series, they're going to do an East-West showdown here in Atlanta. We're going to see AC, we're going to see, you know, Ferrandis, McElrath, Nichols, all those guys coming over and challenging these East boys. And I think this is going to be pretty good, because we got 2 pro circuit guys that probably think that they're the best 250 rider on the planet right now, battling each other essentially for dominance within their own truck, and obviously trying to win a championship as well, but they need those max points, and every position kind of counts. So I'd be really curious what the team dynamic is this weekend at Pro Circuit, with these 2 guys having the red plates, and, you know, Mitch Payton probably not wanting them to do anything stupid, but obviously the most points needed to be granted here. And I don't know, we'll see. I'm definitely looking forward to watching that kind of play out, because who the heck knows what will happen between the teammates there. But anyway, that has been Detroit in a nutshell, right here on SYS. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. You know, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What you think of my thoughts, what you thought of the race, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to hear me talk about a little bit more, or maybe something I can comment on that I didn't in this video. Always love bench racing with you guys. And as always, love that you guys support the channel as much as you guys do. So thanks again so much for watching another video here on SYS. My name is Kellen, and I'll see you guys in the next one. So long for now.